Welcome to Tycoons of Small Biz, a podcast where small business owners are celebrated as the backbone of the American economy. Each week, we introduce you to tycoons who share their stories and advice so that small business owners may learn from their experiences. Tycoons is powered by Backbone Planning Partners, FinTrepid Solutions, and Pivotal Advisors. Join us now as our hosts connect you to today's Tycoons.
Good afternoon, Tycoons, and welcome to today's episode of Tycoons of Small Biz. I'm your host here, as always, Austin Peterson, coming to you live from Gilbert, Arizona. The temperature's not too high, but the humidity is higher than it should be in Arizona. Everybody says it's okay, the heat's fine, it's a dry heat, don't worry about it, but they forget about monsoon season. So it is quite humid here today and still 102 degrees. So I think it's probably worse than it is in Lubbock, Texas, where our guest is coming from. But before we introduce the guest and let you know who we've got on the show today, if this is the first time that you're listening to our podcast and you're wondering what it is we do here at Tycoons of Small Biz, we are a podcast that's put together by small business owners for small business owners. We believe truly that the backbone of the American economy is the small business owner, and we want to celebrate that. We want to give them a platform. We want to give them an opportunity to share their story, share some advice, maybe, inspire other business owners and entrepreneurs throughout the country. And so we put together this podcast in May of 2020, and we've been going strong every week ever since. So with that being said, welcome to the show. We've got on our podcast today, definitely a tycoon of small biz, Travis Turner, coming to us from Lubbock, Texas. Travis is a real estate agent and owner of Brick and Loft Realty. Travis, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, how you doing? I'm glad to be here.
Good. Yeah, we're excited to have you here, and I appreciate you making the time to be on our fledgling podcast. So, Travis, before we jump into the business side of things, tell us about you personally. Did you grow up in Lubbock? What is your family life like? Are you married? Do you have kids? Where did you go to school? Whatever you'd like us to know about you personally.
Yeah, well, to answer the first question, we actually got some rain here recently too. So, and then a little bit down from me is Dallas, hop, skip, and a drive. I work there too, and they're having flash floods. So we don't do well with rain either. We're not used to it, and a little bit of rain goes a long way here. So it's been good. Everybody's been happy. It's been very humid. I'm used to the dry heat. So I'm with you there with the weather. As far as myself, I grew up in Lubbock, Texas. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. So my mom and my dad, they started a restaurant called Orlando's. And from there, it spun off into a restaurant called Caprock Cafe. And both of these Orlando's is the second longest tenured restaurant in Lubbock, Texas. And they have over 350 employees, multi-million-dollar franchise type, or it's not a franchise, multi-million-dollar setup that they have. It's a super cool company that they have going. And it wasn't something that I necessarily wanted to step my feet into. I was not geared to run restaurants, and that's a lot of headache and responsibility and relying on other people. And so I was like, well, what else can I do? So growing up in Lubbock was good. It's a very family-friendly environment, pretty secluded. I mean, we're called the hub city for a reason because we are we're about 6 hours is the closest drive to a major city, that being Dallas. So we're all kind of by ourselves. We have the medical hub here, so a lot of smaller towns and outside areas come to Lubbock for medical help and college and things like that. But we're isolated out here. But growing up in Lubbock, it was fun. I went to a school called Friendship High School where I played basketball and I played football. Ended up just doing basketball for most of my career. And then I played basketball in college a little bit at a college called Lubbock Christian University. From there, I transferred to Texas Tech University, where I was a major in the business school. And I was a major in 3 different areas of business. So I graduated technically with a triple major, but one of them was kind of given to you for free just for taking enough hours in the business school. So I'd say more of like a double major. And I still didn't know what I was going to do. So I was actually working at Costco. And I remember that they were telling me about one of the owners of Costco. And I was, I'm always curious about numbers. And I've heard numbers being talked about my entire life, just coming from business. And so I was asking kind of what the general manager who owns the company's salary looked like, with him being, 42-ish when I was 22 or 23 at the time. And I remember them telling me, he's one of the youngest general managers of a store ever. He makes, about $120,000 a year. And I was like, I thought about that. And I was like, he's been at the company for 20 something years and he just now hit a 6-figure salary. I was like, I need to do something different than that. Right. So I was like, I don't know what else I can do, but I'm going to figure it out. And so I left Costco. I started bouncing at a bar, as most people do, right? So I was a bar bouncer there at one of the it's a place called Chimmy's, one of the most popular places that was in Lubbock. And at the same time, I decided, well, hey, I'm going to start real estate. So I went and talked to one of the top agents in Lubbock, who happened to be the dad of my sister's best friend. And so I was like, well, I'll just go talk to him out of the blue. He's like, if you get your license, you can come work, you can come try it out and work for me. And I said, okay, great. So I worked 40 hours at Chimmy's, and I worked about 20 to 30 hours doing real estate and working on my license and getting that stuff going. I pretty much sold my first house right after starting Chimmy's, but it was a fun time. I met a lot of people through that business. I don't, like you said, I don't want to jump into the business side of things yet. That's kind of how I got involved in real estate. But a little bit more about me personally, before we jump into that, is I'm a huge man of faith. So I sing for my church. I'm on the worship team. I also lead a youth group. So I administer to children, or kids that are anywhere between the ages of sixth grade through 12th grade. So I'm there every Wednesday and Sunday doing stuff with my church. Huge into basketball. I played a basketball game last night. I'm still very competitive. I work out, 3 to 4 times a week now. And yeah, and then I enjoy helping people with business and through real estate. Back on the faith thing, I was talking to a lady who's putting together. I'm actually going to be featured in a magazine here locally, and she was asking me some questions, and she loved my faith aspect, and we started talking a little bit deeper. And I told her that the reason that I'm here and that I know is I'm here is to bring joy to people. And so that doesn't necessarily mean to just go out and make them laugh, right? But just more of like joy is long term. So just creating relationships and being able to speak to people on a personal level and people open up to you is kind of a gift that I've been given. And so that kind of tells you a little bit about me personally, what I'm into, what I've been doing. Huge sports guy, love doing fantasy football, all those kind of things. Avid worker outer, never camped, never hunted. Not huge things. Being from West Texas, people like what, but it's just not something that I do. I'm very impulsive. I went out and bought a four-wheeler last week just because I've always wanted one. I've moved 6 times in the past 2 years, just creating a little rental portfolio basis, which I can explain here later on too. But that kind of gives you an idea of where I come from, family entrepreneur, and where I am now as far as personal life. So
Yeah, very cool. So let's go back actually and start with your parents being entrepreneurs. First, you have to explain to me how you have a name like Orlando's in Lubbock, Texas, right? So tell me where the name came from first.
yeah. So the original owner, there's a gentleman named David Sia, and he's the son of Mike Sia. And it was from his side of the family that the name Orlando came from. And that was where all the recipes, it was his like grandfather or his dad, I can't remember who the name trickled down from. And so he was like, I'm going to name it after them. So he named it Orlando's. And then obviously he passed away. And then my dad partnered with Mike, and they both started running the single Orlando's that was there. And then David C and the rest of the partners jumped in too and started creating this huge enterprise, which is now 2 Orlando stores and 2 Caprock cafes named after the Caprock Canyon located around here. So that's kind of where they got their names and how they came to be.
All right. So it came from somebody's name originally. Is your dad or mom and dad still partners with the Sia family, or it's just your family now?
It's there's 3 families. So there's the David Sia and his family, Gerald Fanta and his family, and then the Turners, which is my family. Both of my mom and dad are both on the team. My parents are texting me details as they're watching. So
Oh.
yeah, I'm getting some notifications. But yeah, that's pretty much how it started and where they're at now.
Yeah. Well, since they're listening, I'll just throw this out there. We would love to have them on the show as well. We had one restaurant group that was going to be on the show, and the owner got very sick the day of the recording. And so we had to scramble and put somebody else on. So we've never had a restaurant group on the podcast. 120 episodes, we've never had one. So we'd love to have a restaurant group on the podcast. So if this is something your mom and dad or any of their other partners would like to do, we'd love to have that conversation. But so now I kind of lost my train of thought. Well, actually, I was going to make a comment about Friendship High School. Is that like the name of the township? I know it's not spelled like friendship.
Yeah, FREN. So friendship. And it is located in Wolforth. So it's like a suburb of Lubbock. It's the school that I went to. So the elementary was in Lubbock, and then you transition into Wolforth, and that's where the high school is. And when I attended, my class was like 420 students, and we were a 4A school. And fast forward to now, which is I graduated in 2010. So even 2 years ago, it's still the same. They're now 6A, and they're graduating their freshman class. They have their own building because they've gotten so large. They have their own freshman school for the high school. It's across the street from the actual high school. And I think the class for the freshmen is about 1,200 students just freshmen. And so they've definitely grown. And then you have another school called Cooper, and so now you have the big Texas rivalry, which is these two big 6A schools in Lubbock, Cooper and Friendship, that play sports against each other and compete every year. So it's become a big rivalry since when I was there to now, but now they're both massive schools, and they've just happened to be in the good part of town where all the buildings going and everybody's wanting to move to. And they've been highlighted as some of the top school districts in Texas and things like that for academics and sports. So yeah, people love it out there.
So is this a part of Texas where this whole town shuts down on Friday night during football season, and the whole town is at the high school football games?
For the high school, I would say not as much as when Texas Tech plays. That's the college here. So a lot of the attention centers around Texas Tech sports. So you don't want to have anything going on when Tech's playing a game, even depending on how we're doing that season. I mean, if we're on a win streak and we're 3-4 games that we've won and our record looks pretty good in the beginning, it's like a madhouse. You don't even want to drive downtown. But if it's a season that's not so popular, I mean, people fight or flight, they'll just be gone, and you can kind of that kind of thing. But I mean, they people bleed it. They just they'll get upset and they won't. We're very passionate here. So, but yeah, Texas Tech is definitely when it's Saturday, you don't want to be out.
All right. Well, I'm going to make one more mention real quick on the faith thing. So my partner and I, Landon, are both men of faith, where it's very important to us. We spend a lot of time doing stuff with our church and spending time with our families and the youth and serving the community. And so hats off to you for that. And I won't put you on the spot and have you sing something, but I actually love to sing as well. And so it's something that I've thought about doing on the podcast and some of my social media, but I just haven't taken that step just yet.
Yeah, you definitely should. I'd love to hear the voice.
I'll work my way up to that. I do think it actually could have kind of a unique spin either on the podcast or on social media, but we'll see if I get up the courage to do that. But I love to sing. My family knows very well that I love to sing. I'm singing. I love it.
Yeah, guaranteed. I think you do well. And what do you like to sing? Country music or Christian or?
A little of everything. I mean, I think my baritone voice lends itself to country music, so that's kind of my area for sure. But my wife's not a country fan, so she doesn't get excited about going to a local restaurant or a coffee shop or something to hear me sing country music. She doesn't like it. I love to sing country music. I love to sing gospel music. Really, I'll sing anything. I mean, old classic rock songs, the Eagles or Steve Miller Band, something like that.
Yeah.
Sing as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'd love to see that on the show sometime. Have me back.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have a special segment where just you and I sing something. That would be
yeah.
cool.
See how many people tune in.
Yeah. Right. Or if Daryl, our producer, happens to see all the listener numbers dropping while we're singing, get interrupted.
Exactly. I'm down for that. Sign me up.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump into the business side. So you got, Brick and Loft Realty. I know you got a couple of other companies that you've kind of set up along the way that are interrelated. So I'll just kind of turn it over to you and say, who is or what is Brick and Loft? Who do you guys serve? And you can expand and talk about the other companies and what all you guys do there as well.
I think it always helps to know where you're at, to know where you came from. So, the past dictates the future. So I started in real estate as where I left off. I was working at Chimmy's doing the same thing. My first sale came from working at the bar. My first sale was a $400,000 garden home, made $6,000 with my cut, most money I'd ever seen in my life. Quit the bar scene, focused purely on real estate, didn't sell another house for another 4 or 5 months. So that's just how it goes. That's how real estate. I thought this whole time, I was like, man, this is easy. Like, people are making bukus of cash. Like, I sold one in a week. I didn't even try, right? And next, I go dry for a whole 5 months. Crazy story. When I was signing on to work with the real estate company I was going to get mentorship and help from a guy that was pretty close to my age, one of my best friends to this day. But at that time, I had been in touch with him since high school, and he ends up getting stabbed and robbed in Dallas when I was going to go work for him or work with him on the team, and he was going to teach me everything. And so he was in the hospital for like 7 months, so literally like a week before I started. And so I didn't have any of that kind of mentorship. I was just in a room by myself, and then my boss was so busy because he just does a lot of real estate deals that he would just like walk in, hand me a number and a name, and he'd be out the door. And so I didn't know how to lead gen. I didn't know how to like set my day up. I didn't know how to take, the notes I needed to, or any of that kind of process. And so it kind of was like a sink or swim type of situation. And I'm honestly grateful that that was the way it was, because I developed so many different ways that I was able to get in front of people and create content and get in front of clients and show houses and sell property because of all the ways that I developed. And a lot of the things that I developed were ways that most of the general public and realtors weren't doing, because they probably were taught how to do certain things. So that's what their focus was, versus mine was like, I'll just try everything. And so that's what I ended up doing and developing my own niche and my own ways for generating business. But I started 2015, and I probably was in the top quarter of agents, maybe top 20% in sales for my first year, or for all agents in Lubbock. And there's about 1,400 agents. Back then there was about 1,000. So it's grown, but there was about 1,000 agents at the time. So I was probably in the top 250 agents, 200 agents probably in Lubbock just in my first year. And then every year since, I've slowly increased up. So I built my base, built my clientele, and then I really dove into the investing side of things. About year 4, year 5, met some really cool partners, and decided that, hey, like maybe this is something we wanted to entertain. And some things kind of fell into place to where it was time to ultimately move on and open a company. And I've always wanted, I mean, watching my parents, I've always wanted to own my own company. Like I knew I was part of a great team and we had a great thing going, but there's always something that, even if it's a risk or you don't end up making as much or whatever, it's like the what if down the 20 years from now, right? And it's like opening your own thing is something that I wanted to do personally. It was one step that I wanted to take, and I felt called to do so. And so here we are, fast forward about a year and a half. We started Brick and Loft in 2021. It was that March is when pretty much when I moved over. And it was me, and there's 3 other partners. Craziest thing ever. Travis Turner, myself, Travis Lanning, Travis Hansen, and then Landon Quigley. And yeah, there was 3 Travises in Landon. And so that's pretty funny. There's some, and then now our like banker's name is Travis. We hired a guy named Landon Turner. So Travis Turner, Landon Quigley, Landon Turner. So there's a lot of confusion in the office. You couldn't say anybody's first or last name without getting multiple people saying what. So that was definitely interesting, and a joke a lot of times. And people would say Landon Turner was our son and stuff like that. And it was funny, but pretty crazy there. So yeah, 2 of my partners named Travis as well. So we're all on a last name basis. But we did. I won't go into heavy detail, but we set our brokerage up where pretty much we sold off an equity portion of the company to the community to get community involvement, to where that they could have ownership, but also help us to generate leads and organic leads and their family members. Right? If they have a hand in something, why would they send their family member, their brother, or their aunt, or whatever, to their real estate company when they could make money passively through sending it to our company? And so we ended up doing that. We held an event, held a big party, had wine, food, the whole nine. Sat down with people and helped them get set up with our company. And then from there, it's been slowly building our systems over the last year of how we're going to train, onboard, who we're going to go after, how we're going to hire people, and then what markets we're going to service. So now we're in Midland, we're in Lubbock, Texas, Midland, Texas, and then we're also servicing the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I was just on a Zoom call with a girl that is joining the team in Dallas, and she's going to be the feet on the ground there. We're going to build out there as well. And so Brick and Loft is our real estate brokerage that the 4 of us own and operate, and are helping to teach and to grow our agents here in local in Lubbock and in other markets, and eventually hopefully cover quite a bit of the South. And the model that I've kind of gone after is that I really, like I said, my passion is to bring joy and success. Like I succeed when other people succeed, and when other people get excited to make a sale, and when they get business going and they can support their family. And so I invest my personal time on a daily basis to other people to help them succeed. So I was just on an hour Zoom call before this one with about 3 of my agents, just going over ways that they can create more business, how they can get some stuff going and set up. Anytime anybody needs me, they can call me. I sit down and spoke about how to host Airbnbs with one of my agents earlier. So anytime I can give time to help boost them in their career, is what I do. I don't want them to ever feel like a number and just like joining a company and like go sell real estate. Good luck. It's more of like, hey, like it's a hard business. It's still going to be your business. You're still an independent contractor, but I'm going to do everything I can to make you win. Do we give it our best shot, right? So if they give any ounce of effort, in my mind, they should be able to succeed and make it a living and make it a career. And yeah, so that's pretty much what Brick and Loft is our new company. And we're the building. I forgot to mention we're building a $2 million building on the south side of town. It's a 2-story, super cool building right in the heart of everything, where Lubbock is moving to. It's Brick and Loft. Obviously, we have brick on the exterior, and the interior we have brick walls, and then we have a big loft up top where the owners are going to be able to have their offices, and then we have like a cool staircase, and eventually we may have a slide, after it's all said and done, type of stuff. So that'd be something fun to add. They nixed the fire pole. They said no fire pole, so we must have that. So
You're just going to say that.
yeah, we took that out of the plans. It is what it is, but slide will be coming eventually. But yeah, that's our main hub and our main building, and that'll be done hopefully in November or December, and then I'll be doing the next call like this out of that office. So yeah, that's the plan here in the next couple of months, which I'm pretty excited for. And so right now, full recruit mode. So that's Brick and Loft in a nutshell.
I may have to come down to Lubbock just to be able to go down that slide.
Yeah, you need to come, man. We're gonna have a grand opening, and it'll be a big party.
I think what you guys are doing is obviously a unique spin on real estate in general, but there are a couple things that stick out. So we had a guest on the program long time ago, probably episode, I want to say 7, 8, 9, somewhere in that range. And he was a really young real estate agent, right? And I think he has his own brokerage now. I'm not positive, but he came in with his broker at the time. But he was like 22, 23 years old, like really, really young, right? But he was killing it in real estate, which was what was so intriguing to me, is that he was one of the top producers in the whole Phoenix Valley, which Phoenix is larger than Lubbock, right? I don't know how many real estate agents there are here, but he was really, really killing it. And a big thing that he did that was unique and is actually speaks to, his age. You're older than he is, but not a ton older than he is. And that is that you guys have a knack and an understanding of how real estate can be used or done differently by using social media and some of these other things that exist today, as opposed to, most of the realtors that I know that are in their 50s and 60s who are not real comfortable with social media.
100%. Yeah, to speak on that a little bit. Some of the Zoom call that I was on before this too, when we were talking about different training techniques and what to do. Social media is a huge one that I hit on. Utilizing social media in all forms. So, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, but then you got LinkedIn, right? You need to jump on LinkedIn and make sure that that's good to go. And then YouTube. I didn't know that YouTube is probably the largest platform and the most, the one that gives you the most metrics for watching, for views, the easiest payout one, the one that produces the most revenue and leads. And so I actually have my YouTube account pulled up that I'm trying to post a video, but I've been doing some different calls and things all day. But I've got my account created, and as of today or tomorrow, will be the first video that I post, and I'll start my YouTube channel for different investing techniques. Obviously different showcasing of properties, and then maybe even some more fun light side type of stuff. And I attended an event in Dallas this past weekend, and with some of my agents, and we went to see Ryan Serhant speak, which is an idol of mine. He's one of the top real estate agents in the world. He's in New York, and he came to Dallas to speak, and so I got to ask him a couple of questions personally. But the entire presentation, from the first speaker to the end of his speaking, was everybody in between. They all talked about online or social media. That was what they hit on, all of them. It was the most important detail and all they spent their time on. So I know it's such a heavy platform, and yeah, the people that aren't comfortable with it and can't get, you're in front of a camera. Most people can't even do that and talk, right? They can't do both. They feel too uncomfortable with the way they look, or they think they look goofy. And it's like, you got to get past a certain mentality of, I can't do this because of certain XYZ reason that honestly, that you formulate in your own mind. Nobody's ever told you that, right? They haven't posted a video and somebody's just bashed them completely. It's, they had their own concept that they've developed in their mind of why it's going to not work out or whatever. And that's their own mind saying that versus somebody else versus just, hey, let's just try one and just see how it goes and getting over that hurdle of being embarrassed. Because at the end of the day, we're all, if it's going to boost your company, make you more revenue, make you more deals, and get you in front of people, like I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I mean, if I got to wear a diaper and run around the neighborhood to create, if it got me listings, I would do it. Whatever it takes to get the listings, and if it's power of social media and creating content, I'm going to make it happen. I got a guy that I just hired on that I'm meeting after we finish this. It's going to help me create some content as well. So yeah, creating content's huge, and social media is a very powerful tool that a lot of people unfortunately won't use. I'd probably say 10% of agents in the world use social media platform, and I think it'll change in 5 years. That number will drastically change because
Yeah.
it'll be the only way to get in front of people.
Yeah, I agree. I think that people are going to catch on at some point, but that, first to market sort of thing kind of helps. It's the same in my business. My day-to-day business, very few people do what we're doing here, record a podcast, do something on video, whatever. Now, I mean, let's be honest, I'm a very confident, really, really good looking person, right? So
Agreed.
so that makes it easier for me, but no, I mean, we all deal with those same insecurities, right? It doesn't matter if we look like Tom Cruise or we look like somebody that's not Tom Cruise, right? But the reality is we all have those insecurities, but it is a differentiator. It is something that makes a huge difference in this marketplace. So the other thing that I wanted to point out and kind of just get your thoughts on is it is almost appalling to me how many real estate agents there are in our country that do not own any real estate. Like some of them don't even own their own house, let alone any sort of additional real estate properties. So, I mean, what's your experience of that? Maybe you even have statistics on that, but it's mind blowing to me how few real estate agents actually own and participate in real estate, specifically on the investments.
Yeah, I mean it's so true that a lot of realtors don't even own a property. So in Lubbock, just in a general idea, there's about 1,500 agents or so, and only about 700, 800 of those people sell any house within a given year. The rest of them, I don't know if they just have their license to have it or they don't use it. But there's about 800 people in our market that don't sell a house in a calendar year. So there's a lot of people I think out there that getting your real estate license is not hard. It's honestly not hard doing a contract. The hard part is finding people to buy and sell with you. And I think there's about 20 to 30% of the market of agents. This is the hardest market to be a real estate agent in the career that I've been in my short career, about 7 years. But I mean, from like 2008 to probably here is probably one of the hardest markets to be a real estate agent in because there's so little inventory, there's so much cash being thrown around, and people necessarily don't need an agent. They're just throwing a house up there and they were getting whatever they want to. The market's cooled off a little bit, but there's just no inventory. So you got four people looking for the same product, and you just gotta wait till something comes up, and then you put an offer in, and there's seven other offers, and you've lost. So you gotta, the more experienced agents are the ones that are controlling a lot of the deals right now, and the people that haven't been in the business for very long are not making a whole lot of money. When on the flip side of things, people look at the market and they're thinking it's so hot, and everybody that's in real estate is killing it. It's really not. That's really not the way it's going. So I tell my agents, if you can get through this storm and you can make it to where we have a more stable market and your rates stabilize and everything is more normal, that's when you really can, get involved in the game and start making a name for yourself. Because right now it's very hard. So if you can make it now, you can make it anytime. But back to your original statement of a lot of agents are practicing real estate and they're giving their opinions on just the normal side of things of just walking a house and selling it. Okay, like yeah, if you don't own your own home, you live in a home, so you still can know the flooring, you can know the area, you can know the prices, you can know every detail about a house without actually having to own one. I think experience is key in any kind of business. So I bought a house just to know what the process was like of actually buying a house and being on the other end, right? Because I never had that experience with the first couple of deals I did. So they were like, I didn't know exactly what the bank sent you to get pre-approved, and I didn't know what documents they technically needed from you, or how many, like all the inbound calls because your information gets sold, and all the mail that tells you to pay for this and that, and you think it's legit and it's actually not. All those little small intrinsic things have value. And so when I bought my own house, I was able to say, yeah, well, I've actually bought my house. I know kind of step by step how this goes, and then I can guide the buyer through there. With investing, I think that a lot of agents think that investing is, oh, that property has a tenant in it, it's an investment. It'll be $1,000 rent and the property be $200,000. Well, yeah, it's in rented, but how's that an investment when you're going to negatively cash flow every month unless you put half down? It's not a good deal. And so I've made a name for myself in my market with investment property because I've owned over 100 rental properties at one time. I built that portfolio up and over like about 2 years, 2.5 years. I own right now. I'm over 20 properties personally in my portfolio, just with myself, without any other partners in it. And then I've gone through and bought and sold. And I do about 80 to 100 transactions a year, properties, and so I move quite a bit of property. So I know a contract like the back of my hand, and all that knowledge. I tell my agents always, it produces so much value when talking to somebody. And I think owning property, if you're going to start teaching people on how to invest their money, you got to be very, very careful because people work very hard for their money. Real estate is statistically one of the largest, if not the largest purchase that an individual person will ever make in their entire life. So you're handling a massive portion of their money, and yeah, you're getting paid well, but you need to also, you can't just be the, yeah, you want to buy a house, 200,000, okay, you should pay them 200,000 and then collect a check. It's like there's a lot that goes into it, a lot of guidelines, because with investors, if you make them money, they'll be repeat customers. And so I run an investor list that I've developed relationships with these people, talk to them about the market. They'll show me a house. I talk people out of deals sometimes. They'll want to buy a house, and I'm like, I wouldn't buy that just based on this and the number and what you're going to pay for repairs and all this. It's not going to be a good deal. And so I've done very well with that. And then I've owned properties from, I rebuilt a house that I bought for $12,000 and rebuilt it from the studs up, right? Where you probably should have just demoed it, all the way to doing light remodels. But I've done everything in between: plumbing lines, sewer lines, roofs, decking, installed HVAC units with some crews. Anything under the sun you can think of for a property, I've done it. So I know the cost. I know what to look for. I know, what foundation damage looks like versus settling. There's a lot of different things you can look at. And so when I've owned property as well, people will be like freaked out about an investment. I'm telling them like, hey, it's an investment property. You're really worried about the bottom line. You don't have to live in this house. It's just something that's going to make you money. And so just different things like that with owning property and understanding exactly what it means to own your own rental property will help. You can pass that information along to a buyer and investor, especially one that's a little bit newer that doesn't necessarily know what they're doing. Because at the end of the day, you want them to make a sound investment to where they tell all their buddies and they come invest with you more, and you bring repeat business. And that's pretty much the name of the game. So there's a lot of agents out there that I think are one and dones because they tell people that this is a great investment property, and then that person buys it, and then they get upside down in it, or they need to sell it because it's not cash flowing, and then they're burned down. They don't want to do real estate investing. And everybody knows that person, right? Oh, don't buy a rental; it's a headache. And my tenant did this and punched holes in the wall and like tore the toilet out and left. And it's like, okay, yeah, that stuff happens. But if you buy right, you have the right team behind you. We patch all that stuff up. We take their deposit, we take money, and then we keep rolling. It's an investment, so there is risk. But yeah, I think that owning your own property has a huge benefit for teaching people.
Obviously, some of these younger realtors that are just getting involved right out of college, they haven't purchased a house or, any of those sorts of things. And so they count on you to be that mentor and to be, kind of borrow your experience, so to speak, as their broker. But we were talking earlier about social media and just listening to you go through the different things that you have done and just getting started with your YouTube channel, like those are the types of things that you should be putting in your videos on your YouTube channel. Is just talk through some of the experiences that you've had. I bought this house and I had to do this and I had to, I tore it down and rebuilt it from the studs. And in doing that, I learned this that I can now pass on to you, right? Like there are some national real estate experts, right? That you're just not going to compete with on social media, on YouTube, whatever, right? But there's no reason to believe that you couldn't be the guy for Lubbock, right?
100%.
To where I live here in Lubbock. This is what I've done. These are the houses that I've bought in Lubbock and Dallas, Fort Worth, and Midland. And, these are the different things that I've done. And this is how you can do it yourself, right? And just sharing that information will endear people to come to you. They're not going to want to learn it themselves, but they know that they can come to Travis, and Travis knows what to look for and how to calculate a cap rate, or how to know what the repairs are going to cost for this. And in order for it to really be able to be rented for $1,500 a month, you're going to have to do this, this, and this, and it's going to cost you this. And so if we factor that in, all that kind of stuff is valuable. And too many people are afraid of sharing that information because they feel like, well, that's my education. That's what I know. That's what makes me unique. But if you share that as an educator online, people will flock to you.
Yeah, 100%. There's some people that have a good following on social media, but in my mind, it's probably every business owner, even small, large, whatever, is that all those people started from scratch at one point in their time too. So not to say that I first is Lubbock, and then you hopefully can blow up and do more other areas in Dallas and the Midland, then you're doing Miami, and then it just blows up to where you can kind of build your presence up, more globally. Because I think that the main thing is just the knowledge. You've got the knowledge and you have the right presence, which is why I've been doing my YouTube channels, slower, is because I think there's a difference between having half of it is content and the other half is presentation. And if you have really good content and your presentation sucks, people still won't watch it. You'd be the smartest man alive. And people, if you're filming with your phone and it's shaky and the mic's kind of off and you're, you know what I mean, and you're kind of stuttering and all that kind of stuff, it's not going to look well on camera. It's not going to make you any money and no views. But if you make it exciting, and like I have my videographer that I just hired on, and then I got me a little Bluetooth mic that I can clip to my shirt, so when I turn, the voice doesn't cut in and out, right? And then he films me, and I can start doing different kind of videos, and then tackling stuff under 60 seconds. The attention span of somebody is between 3 and 7 seconds to get their attention in a video, right? Before they just scroll to the next one. All the metrics on all the systems, they have to watch 70% of the video before it counts as like a watch. And then the more views you get and the more time they spend on your video, the more the system and the metrics work out in your favor to where it pulls on their page, the other people's page, and it blows up, and then it starts showing up on the For You page and things like that. So my target is more shorter videos, educational, wow factor. This house is, it's got stuff everywhere, trash. I've had maggots in the sink and dog poop and stuff, and all the crazy stuff that you see, right? Some of that stuff, people want to see the gross and they want to see the awesome. And right now I know a lot of people show the really, really awesome multi-million-dollar mansions, but nobody really shows like the day-to-day grind of like, this person just trashed this house, come take a look type of deal, and all the stuff you can find. And that'll even get people wow factor and sharing stuff. So that's kind of like what I'm going to start targeting with this. But I like to be pretty close to perfect. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but I'm not just going to throw material out there just to throw it. I'm kind of like, I have ideas, I'm going to put them together and then implement them, but I want it to be on point when I show it so that people actually watch the video. So be looking out for it. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely should be on point, but you don't need it to be perfect, right? People want to see your personality. People do really recording, on their cell phone. So you got to find that happy medium. It's funny, you talk about how you can be the smartest person in the world and put content out, but people don't care about it. It reminds, you ever watch the show Big Bang Theory?
No, yeah.
So, Sheldon Cooper records Fun with Flags, right? And he's got his own YouTube show called Fun with Flags, and of course nobody's watching it because nobody cares about the origin of such and such flag, et cetera, et cetera. So
good reference.
Yeah, so on that note, let's take a quick break. We'll hear a quick call to action for our listeners, and then we'll come back and talk some more real estate.
Hey there, Tycoons. Austin Peterson here, co-host of Tycoons of Small Biz. If you think you have what it takes to be considered a tycoon and you're wondering how you could become a featured guest, please follow and then message us at Tycoons of Small Biz on LinkedIn. We'd love to have a conversation with you to see if it is a mutually good fit, and if so, we'll get you scheduled for an interview. If you're unsure about being a guest on our podcast, but are contemplating selling your business over the next few years and you'd like to know what your business is worth, please also follow us and then message us on LinkedIn for your no-obligation, informal valuation of your business. We look forward to hearing from you, and thanks for listening to the Tycoons of Small Biz podcast. And now, back to today's program.
All right, Tycoons, welcome back to today's program. We're here with Travis Turner of Brick and Loft Realty out of Lubbock, Texas. Travis, we've been talking a lot about, obviously, the different things that you've done in real estate over the years, but one of the things that you alluded to is today's market, right? Being a tough market to jump into the market. It's tough as a buyer, it's tough as a seller. So why should anybody purchase a home, or when should somebody purchase a home in this market, in your opinion?
A few key things. Like, I make money selling and buying property, right? But I still want the best for people. And so what I tell people is that there's a few key facts. 'Cause I haven't put a number on because I don't know how many it's going to be. Right? Some people will be like, "There's 3 things you need to know." Well, there's a list of things you know. I don't know how many it is, so we're going to go over them. But number one, always buy within your means. So if you can afford a $500,000 house, but I mean you're looking at your payment, you're like, yeah, I can afford it, but I'm going to be strapped. Like, don't do that. That's not a good investment, because even your personal home is an investment. I mean, you're still investing money. It's going to appreciate over time. You still depreciate on your taxes. You can still write off stuff for your home purchase and things like that. And it could be an investment in the future, maybe that you rent out or sell and make some profit on, right? There's a lot of clients that have bought with me and then their house has gone up 40% and then they sold it. That's an investment. They made money versus a car. You buy it, except for in this market, it's a little different. But normally you buy a vehicle, and as you put 40, 50,000 miles on it, that car depreciates. It's not an appreciating asset, right? That's not an investment. So buy within your means is a huge one. And then I think buy it all. So you have people, 100% of the rent that you pay is not building anything for you, right? Versus at least getting some type. I mean, 6% interest rates. I mean, if people didn't grow up in the 2000s, they know that interest rates were in the double digits, in the 80s. They've been, they were high as like 16, 17%, which my parents had a house when they still bought it, that rate. So people still buy as the rates go up. And as rates come down, you can refinance. So it's not like you're going to be tied to a 7% interest rate for 30 years. You buy a house, you start building equity. The house will appreciate over time no matter what. I mean, you may see, like if you look at a graph, right, between here and here, it looks like the stock market. The stock market goes like this and goes all the way up. And then you have like 2000 or whatever, 2008, it's like this, right? But in that little window, it looked huge. But in the big scheme of like over time, it's like a little blip and then it's back up. And over time, it's the same with real estate. Has gone up and up because there's no more real estate. It's a tangible asset. There's no more. There's no less land. It just is what it is, right? And there's more people. Generally, the population is growing. There are people, with inflation, there's money everywhere. People want to live somewhere, but there's nothing to buy. So demand was like shooting through the roof, right? So people are always going to need a roof over their head and a place to live. It's always going to be the American dream. Even if you're not in America, it can be, it's dreams to own property wherever you're at. Like you want to own your own house. That is almost 95%, 97% people's goal is to own a property of their own. And so buying something just to start building equity in and just learning the process of how to own a home, like what repairs go into it, like what the process is, and just calling something your own is a huge mental thing too. Because, I have a lot of renters that I need to get in there and do stuff to the property, or like I sell one and I'm intruding their space and they're all upset. But I'm like, you don't, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, but you don't own the property. Like the only right you have to it is that you're allowed to live there because you've signed an agreement. But in that agreement, there's all sorts of clauses of I can have access to the property. If you don't make your payment in the first 3 days, I can evict you. I can do all these different things to a tenant. Your tenant rights are there, but they're very limited if you're not making payments, and access to the property is always given to the landlord. I could just show up and walk through the house. It's the right to the owner and to the property management company. Versus owning your own home, you have way more control and privacy and flexibility and things like that. People don't think houses are that liquid. Well, I mean, you've seen how the market's been now. I bet everybody wishes they bought a house in 2019 because of how the market's been, right? It was crazy, right? And it's just, I mean, there's gonna be moments like that. I mean, people bought stuff 30 years ago and now they're reaping, benefits massively. I mean, it's the opportunity is endless, and people always ask me, what do I think the market's doing? And I tell them, I think the market, you could see a little bit of a change. Interest rates, they're combating inflation by raising interest rates. That only goes so far. People are still buying right now. Interest rates only controlled inflation so much. There was still an increase until they had their last hike, I think, and then it kind of steadied. So people are still out there buying. Real estate is, I think, with social media and just the energy and the attraction around it with all the TV shows and everybody investing in all the social media now, having TikTok presence and stuff. Real estate's really becoming a booming thing that everybody wants to be in. And when everybody wants to be in something, you just see it continue to go up and up and up. And it's a tangible asset, one of the most powerful, largest purchases you can make. So it's always going to have value. So I tell people, you can't time the market. If you could time the market, if let me know. If I could time the market, I'd be a billionaire, right? Like it just doesn't work like that. Incremental buying and buying smart does. So that's why I go back to my first point, buy within your means. Yeah, okay, if rates are 10%, buy something that you can afford, because as rates go up like that, generally house prices will stabilize, or you might even be able to find some more deals, right? Because now nobody can afford a $400,000 house at 10%. So that house might be 325, 350. Well, then you get that house, but then it's going to go back up to 400, 450, and then you can just refinance, a year later, float the extra $100 a month for a year, and then refinance on a lower note. And so you can't predict the market. Buy within your means. Buy something that you can invest in. Be smart about it. And that's pretty much what I tell people about the market and when to buy and how to buy. And they always ask me. They always want to try to time it and wait until next year to see how things go. And I'm like, well, next year that $200,000 house is going to be $215,000. Yeah, you might save 0.5% on your interest rate, but you also have zero equity. So it's like you could have had 12 months of equity versus now you have none. The house is a little higher, but you're saving 0.5 point on interest rates, which you could have refinanced in 12 months anyway. So there's not a whole lot of benefit to waiting. Just buying smart is the main key.
Yeah, well, you're kind of preaching to the choir. Obviously, Landon and I have these conversations with our clients from time to time about the stock market, right? And wanting to time the stock market. And it's the same thing. It's, nobody's going to time it perfectly. Get in when you can. If there's a pullback, put in more money. There's always a buying opportunity, but we all get in our own heads. Even with as logical as I am with what I do for a living, when I bought the house that I live in now, I knew that I was overpaying for it in that market, right? And I bought it in July of 2015. I didn't negotiate a ton because it was a widow who had just lost her husband in his late 30s to brain cancer. I knew that I was probably paying about $15,000 more than I should have been paying for it. But she had listed it for sell by owner through this Facebook page. We live in this neighborhood that is just super well known, and everybody wants to live here because we live in Arizona, but there's groundwater. And so we have an exemption for trees and grass. And, we have really nice, beautiful yards compared to most areas that have the desert landscape, right? Yeah. And it's not that there's anything wrong with the desert landscape, but if you want this type of landscaping, it's in this neighborhood. It's in this area that used to be farmland that had groundwater. And so with that, a lot of owners are able to just list their property for sale by owner on Facebook and, sell it that way, right? Well, I also came with a realtor because I wanted the professional to negotiate some things, talk about certain things, handle the contract, those sorts of things. And so because of that, I didn't negotiate. But I fast forward 7 years and my property value has more than doubled since I bought it 7 years ago, right? So I felt like I overpaid then, but now I feel quite comfortable with what I paid, right?
Yeah, you're wearing the investor badge. You're like, oh yeah, no, you should, trust me. You like tell your friends advice, right? Like, no, trust me, I knew what I was doing back then.
Yeah,
one of those.
Exactly. All right, so we're kind of coming to the end here. So why don't you just real quickly let us know what True Asset and Invex are and what you're doing there, and then wrap up with telling us how people can get in contact with you.
Obviously, Brick and Loft is our real estate brokerage, and we're actively recruiting and hiring agents who want to learn how to sell real estate. I personally teach them, take time to invest in them, teach them all the processes of how to work the computer, how to set up your day, how to get in touch with clients, and then obviously how to negotiate, contract a deal, and everything in between. So that's Brick and Loft Realty. We're currently recruiting in Midland, Lubbock, and Dallas. The cool thing about what I do is if somebody wants to be a realtor in a different market, I'll look at how to set that up. We can figure something out. I'm always down to spread the wings and continue to control other areas. So if you're listening and you're interested, give me a shout if you're interested in something like that or joining on the team. Anywhere in Texas, we're already good to go. I can just buy into the MLS and we can rock and roll. True Asset Property Management, if somebody wants to invest in property and they want us to manage it for them, True Asset is our property management company, which we also can do some construction and things like that. So if they want to invest, a 1031 exchange money, or they want to just buy something in Lubbock because they heard the show and they want to invest in some real estate, I can take from A to Z all the way from I can help you locate a good property to negotiate the deal to managing the property and fixing all the stuff in between to then helping you resell it again to make a profit in the end. So that's True Asset Property Management. We are located in Lubbock. We can do some other stuff, and we're looking to branch out into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, as I mentioned, in the Midland area. So we can manage property out there if somebody has something that we need to look at. I also do Airbnb hosting. So I'm a super host in Airbnb. I host Airbnb property. I can do it from anywhere. I'm particular about the properties I host. So if somebody had one they wanted, they can reach out to me, send me details, and I'll take a look at it, give them the rundown there. And then we have Invex Capital Group, which is something we're super excited about that we rolled out last year. Fund one is already closed, and we've already purchased everything in that one. Basically, what Invex is it's like what Grant Cardone does or what Brandon Turner on Bigger Pockets does. It's a syndication, so they collect money from investors. It's regulated with the SEC, and we get that money funded to us, and then we buy property on their behalf. And the thing that we did differently than other groups is that other groups syndicate a large apartment or a hotel. It's usually one unit or one property that has multiple units versus we targeted single family houses so that we didn't have all of our eggs in one basket. And I don't know if there's any other group that syndicated single family houses before. They always focus on one large unit to fix up a little bit, get it running better, and then sell it and take out the back end. So we purchased about 27 single family houses in the Lubbock area that we're currently managing for the group. And in 3 to 6 years, depending on the market, we will sell those properties, collect the profit, pay out our investors, and then keep rolling forward. And they can roll that into the next fund if they want to, or whatever we have going. So every now and then we'll have an Invex fund open up to where people can invest in certain property or into commercial parks or things like that. So we'll have offerings every now and then that people can invest on, and they can find it at our websites. And so, yeah, those are the three ones I'm working on now as Brick and Loft, True Asset, and Invex Capital Group. Getting in contact with me, talking to him earlier. You can get in contact with me, all forms, shapes, fashions. You can yell at me from across the road, but obviously, do we give out phone numbers here? Is that something? Okay.
Yeah, whatever you like. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So obviously phone, text is the easiest way. I probably get about 200 texts a day and about 40 phone calls that are numbers that I don't recognize. So text me. So I always go through all my texts and respond to everybody. So that's usually the easiest way, that or email. But my number is 806-577-2508. That's my personal cell phone. Or you have my email, which is Travis Turner at BLRLBK. So that's B as in boy, L as in Larry, R as in Randy, and then LBK for Lubbock.com. And then I can get you in touch with any of our companies that you need. Those are pretty much the two main contact information that I use. You can find me on Instagram, Travis Turner _3, Facebook. I don't know, Travis Turner. I don't know how you'd search on Facebook, I guess. I don't know my actual link, but just look Travis Turner. I'm the only one in Lubbock that looks like they sell real estate. And then obviously on all the other social media platforms, just find me or reach out to me on one of my personal contacts, and I can get you set up with the media if you want to follow the YouTube channel, things like that. That's pretty much what I got. And I'll tell you, I was thinking of this the other day. I figured I'd leave you with one good thought. Maybe you can piece this in somewhere. But, people always ask me, I feel like a general question is when they see somebody succeed, like, how are you succeeding? And what are you doing to get ahead? And like, what are the secrets, and what are you doing to create what you're doing and to get ahead? And how do you have all this business or whatever, right? When people are getting into it. And I think that we've gotten so far past what the normality is that everybody's thinking there's like this recipe or something that they need to be doing, when in reality, I think that people need to sit back and just, like, the thing that everybody is not doing is the things like be a genuine person, respond to people, be truthful about the business you're doing. Like, don't undercut somebody or go behind their back or make them buy a bad property or invest in a deal that you're doing or whatever business you're in, right? Like, don't sell them on something that's not right for them, right? Trustworthiness, it goes a long way. I mentioned returning phone calls and texts and respecting people and showing up on time. Things like that, I think, go a long way for business these days. Just being a genuine person and being there for people and just investing back into people, just showing them that you're there for them, because that's what it is. In any sales business, we rely on the customers and they're the business, and without them, we would be nothing. So really remembering that and giving them your full attention, not distracted attention, but full attention. Just all those little things, I think, come into play. And ultimately, that's like probably what 5% of the sales market and the business market does these days. Nobody adheres anymore to the customer. They're all just trying to figure out ways to get people in and out. But if you actually spend time and invest in people, I think you'll do well in your business.
Well said, Travis, and a great way to end the show. So again, appreciate you being here. Really appreciate the story. you're doing some great things, and wish you all the luck in the world as time goes forward.
Appreciate it, Austin. Look forward to singing with you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes, sir. Thanks, man.
You've been listening to Tycoons of Small Biz, a podcast for small business owners by small business owners. Join us every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Arizona time for an introduction to another great tycoon. And be sure to follow us on our social media channels for links to all of our episodes and great content.